Hello and welcome to LBMC Cybersecurity's podcast. I'm your host, Mark Burnette, and I'm really excited to be back with you. Having been a part of this podcast over the years and seeing its evolution for me has been rewarding. And I am particularly pleased today to have two very special guests with me. It's two men who've been a part of our group for a long time and have also taken turns hosting this podcast. So they're people that those of you who are longtime listeners to our podcast will know very well. Kyle Hinterberg and Andy Kerr. Gents, it is great to have you here today.
Awesome to be on talking with you.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation. As we were preparing for this, I thought it would be fun as we kind of move forward in the podcast, since we got some of you on that have been subject matter experts and podcast hosts for a while, to do kind of a best of approach and maybe get each of you to share with me something that is really hot right now that you're seeing as you're serving your clients and as you're out there representing LBMC at conferences and things and hearing some of the key topics. Love to hear from you about what is big right now that is being talked a lot about or that you're seeing your clients struggle with. So, Kyle, I'd love to start with you.
Sure. One of the things that I've been seeing a lot at conferences, I've had a chance to talk about it at conferences, is deepfakes and AI, and just the way that we've exploded in the past, even just 1 year, even going back a couple of years when it was difficult to make a deepfake. And now anyone on their home computer can essentially do a pretty legitimate deepfake in an afternoon and look or sound like anyone. Even just thinking about my day to day, in PCI, one of the requirements is making sure that when someone wants to reset their password, you can validate who they are. And many organizations are like, oh yeah, when Bob calls up, I can tell it's Bob because I recognize Bob's voice. But you can't really rely on that anymore because again, in a couple hours, I can sound just like Bob.
You're exactly right, Kyle. And, I have a specific example of that. I was asked to do a talk on AI about 1.5 years ago. As a part of that, I thought, it would be fun rather than me just talking about what we're seeing happening with AI and what we're doing with AI to help serve our clients. I thought I would demonstrate it. And so I had our penetration testing team actually use some AI voice software to have David Letterman introduce me for the talk. And it was really fun and it was neat I had ChatGPT write a script. I gave it some facts that I wanted, David Letterman to use. And then I sent it to our penetration testing team. And in just a few minutes, I had David Letterman's voice introducing me. Then I grabbed the little lead-in music from the old David Letterman show that used to be on CBS, if you remember, and had that play. And it was interesting because I told the event hosts, hey, instead of, normally you go, well, our next speaker is, Mark Burnette, and he's from LBMC, yada, yada, yada. I said, don't say any of that. Just say it's time for our next speaker and walk off stage. And as long as my slides are already loaded, I'll take care of the rest. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, no. Just trust me, because I had set it up to where David Letterman would do our tonight's next speaker is, that kind of thing. And so sure enough, I hit play and they knew the topic because it was on the screen and it was in their agenda. So they knew it was going to be on AI. And I hit play. And so Letterman did his little 45-second spiel. And before I walked up on the stage, they were already giving me a standing ovation because it had made the point of, my gosh, look what can happen already with AI.
Yeah, that's just it. It's so easy, it's so simple, and it's so convincing. I can remember videos that I've seen back, 5 years ago that already could easily convince you to be, that it was real. Or like if anyone has seen any of the Tom Cruise deepfakes on YouTube, they are so legitimately real that it's hard to know if it's real or not. And Tom Cruise is a little bit of a different personality himself. So if someone's doing a deepfake, it's hard to know if it's real or not. And that's the same issues that we're dealing with in companies. And there have been many, many headlines at this point of organizations accidentally, essentially giving away millions of dollars or having millions of dollars stolen from them because someone is deepfaking a voice or even just a personality, like you said, using ChatGPT. You don't always think about that side of it as a deepfake, but if I go to ChatGPT and tell it to, write a statement in the style of Mark, that's deepfaking your personality, and I can then use that to then have targeted emails. So even if I don't know the CEO of a company well enough to manipulate or act like them, I can pretend to be them, use their voice if it's out there on the internet somewhere, have an AI tool use that so I can craft a phishing email and kind of do a deepfake through text.
Yep, absolutely.
I tell you, if anybody wanted to see the development and how it has changed from year to year, I mean, I know it sounds funny. Go check out the Star Wars Mandalorian, and from season 1 to season 2, you see this representation of like a young Luke Skywalker, and then like a new season, you saw the shift between how this was kind of glitchy a little bit, and then all of a sudden it shifted. And you could tell very little difference in between Mark Hamill when he was in his early 20s and 30s, and then in that new season of The Mandalorian. So think about year over year how well and how the technology is changing and developing so quick that organizations really need to keep up with. Hey, is there something about this image that doesn't look quite right? Or so these are definite things to tracking how quickly the technology changes and how it's advancing. There's not an organization out there that can't afford to not keep up with this.
Yeah, you're right, Andy. And Kyle, I know you've helped me demonstrate that how good these images look a couple of times. With I've had to do a couple of talks where I've had different celebrities that have done an introduction via video. So I know we've done Elon Musk, who introduced me one time. And that was a lot of fun to have Elon Musk introduce me. And then more recently had a professional football coach introduce me to another audience as well. And it was fascinating because I know it was just a video that I shot and sent to you. And in a short period of time, you had me looking and sounding just like the celebrity that we were targeting. And I mean, it was a little overwhelming to see that and how easy it was. And I know you're good at your craft, but it's certainly a reminder of what the capabilities are and how it would be easy to dupe someone into thinking, that you were really that person. I know we saw that during the last political run as well. We saw some deep fakes made of certain politicians that appeared to be making statements that wouldn't be typical for their particular, political stance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the political side too, and just on the legal side, there was just recently, within the last week, a new law passed, the Take It Down Act, which is good as long as it's used for its purpose. But essentially, it's a law that now says that it's a federal law in America. If someone posts an intimate deepfake or intimate AI created video, and the organization like a Facebook or a Google or whoever gets notified, they have 48 hours then to take it down. And so in my opinion, that's awesome. But the downside, if you go look at it, there's some organizations that aren't entirely for it because they're afraid that it's just going to be used for, political purposes, that if someone posts some type of a political parody or something like that, that they will then use that to say, because the definition of what is an intimate video isn't necessarily defined. So there is a chance for overreach, but generally speaking, I think it's, a good start to stop this, because if you go look at deepfakes, 99.9% of them are horrible. And it's the 0.01% that are something like what you've done, Mark, where it's fun and educational, but the high majority are horrible.
Yeah. So, I'm thinking back to the, when you use the word intimate, and I know in some of the laws that they use a word that's a little more descriptive, but, when they don't define it, typically the lawmakers say, it when you see it kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, though, if that law is written in a way that it's one of those where it when you see it, or if you're right, if it could be used much more broadly to take down content that isn't truly of an intimate nature.
Yeah. And that's, I think at this point it'll likely be determined by the government, or the courts when something comes up, because I'm sure that's going to happen with that. But just in the default level, I think it's a good thing. It's a good sign. We always have an issue with tech, is just having the legal side of it keep up with tech. And so this is a step in the right direction as far as that goes. One thing, too, just on deepfakes, if anyone's going to be there, we'll be having a booth down at the Gaylord for the ISC2 Security Congress. And I'm planning to, in the past, I've ran a deepfake booth or a deepfake village at conferences. And so going to have a version of that running at the booth where you'll be able to walk up, scan a QR code or something of that nature, upload your picture, and then start having people deepfaked with your face or whatever face you tend to load it.
So as a former executive at Gaylord, which hotel is this going to be at, and which city, and then what time of year is it?
It's going to be down in Nashville, right in LBMC's backyard, and it's going to be October 28th through the 30th.
Okay, great. The Gaylord Opryland Hotel, 2,881 rooms, largest hotel and convention center in the country without a casino in it. So
sounds
anyway,
like you know a little bit about it.
I may or may not have spent a lot of time over there through the years. So well, awesome. Well, that's great. Well, as we transition, I do want to say I know you guys are experts in PCI, and while this isn't a PCI specific discussion today, I do think I'd love for you guys to share if there's something hot right now in the PCI realm that you're seeing. We could spend just a couple of minutes where you could share that wisdom with our listeners. Sure.
The big thing that I think, and I'm guessing Andy will agree, is payment page scripts. And so with the new version of PCI version 4.0, there were two new requirements, requirement 6.4.3 and 11.6.1, that essentially put controls in place for having scripts on your payment pages. So if you're running, the big culprit would be JavaScript. And so you have a little snippet of JavaScript on your payment page. When your page goes out to get built, it uses that to pull in other code, other places from potential, third or fourth parties, and uses that to put your whole page together. And that's the majority of the way that almost every web page is built nowadays, and that's just expected. But there's always the chance that those third or fourth parties might have been compromised. They might be doing something they shouldn't be doing. And so that can cause a data breach. And that's where these requirements are now coming in, where you have to be aware of these scripts, be able to monitor them, make sure they're not changing. But it's been very difficult for many organizations. And as we all know, the council gave people, a few years to get ahead of this. No one got ahead of it. The majority of people are still right now scrambling, and there are some vendors out there, but not everyone wants to just go buy a vendor. So you got folks trying to, solution their way out of it, but that's very difficult too. And I think it is a good requirement. I think it is valid, but just the whole implementation of the control has been difficult, to say the least.
Yeah, the real big turmoil spin on this has been a lot of folks that it'll utilize an iframe for their payment pages think they're exempt from this. Well, there was some turmoil as far as the conversation is concerned, and the council had to put out a guidance document in the month of, came out end of March, and it was basically started to make its way through in April. But just because you're using an iframe doesn't mean you're immune. It depends on your implementation of the iframe itself. And Kyle and I have many discussions of this and how this is working. If you're using HTML tags for your iframe, okay, you're good. You're not utilizing scripts on your payment pages. But there is also some, are you using a script to deliver up your iframe? Who ultimately is responsible? And for instance, if let's say Fiserv or Freedom Pay or one of the vendors out there, it's their iframe. What we have been telling our clients to do is, hey, reach out to your vendor, get them to send you a statement that says, this is our JavaScript that's delivering up the iframe. You are attesting to say that your script is not going to affect the scripts that would be on the page that is delivering up the iframe itself. And this has been sufficient at the moment instead of having to dig through all those scripts that are running on the payment page itself. So there's still some up in the air. The council is still, I think they're still working on some additional guidance as these questions continue to change and evolve. So I think we're still waiting to hear back from the council and see what's going to happen from here on out.
Yes. Well, I know as a former leader of our PCI team and a former QSA, I know the diligence that you guys go through regularly to make sure that we are advising our clients as reasonably and accurately as we can. I know that both of you and many others of our QSAs are at the PCI Council's community meeting every year. We know how important it is to interact directly with the council and then bring that guidance back to our clients. So I guess I would just say there, if you're listening and this issue resonated with you, feel free to reach out to Andy or Kyle. They'd be happy to get you more information. We can give you that guidance document that Andy referenced. and we can certainly talk with you more about your specific situation. So, Andy, what's on your mind? What's kind of the big thing for you right now that you're seeing as you're talking with companies?
I think one of the largest things that's kind of coming out, I mean, everybody's got so many different standards out there that they're trying to apply, all these different requirements and, anything from high trust to PCI to, ISO, whatever that may be. And what the large development that I'm starting to see is the utilization of artificial intelligence in compliance taken to the next step. There's already dashboards out there that are notifying that have certain data points throughout your network that say, hey, based off of PCI or high trust or SOX or whatever that may be, this particular requirement that you're responsible for, you are now out of compliance. That you're starting to see those types of dashboards pop up all over the place. Well, that next evolution,
checking settings, it's checking system settings and saying, hey, this matches or doesn't match the compliance framework. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but also it's also looking at like file folders. Here's a file folder that has all our policies and procedures in it. Do you see this verbiage in the policies that are in this folder? No, it doesn't. You're out of compliance. And so it'll notify you based off of that. But what this next evolution that we're starting to see, like companies like Google, Red Hat, IBM, they're starting to develop these types of dashboards, is these self-healing networks. And so these self-healing networks are basically, here's our standard. Here's where our requirements are. You're out of compliance. But based off of this standard, the AI will go ahead and prep those changes for you. So if it's policies, procedures, the standard says this new verbiage you have to be in compliance. Well, we're going to go ahead and prep for that. We're going to go ahead and get that ready. And now we're going to notify whoever the person is in charge of this policy. The standard now says this. Your document says this. This needs to be changed. Do you approve? Oh, yes, we approve. Self-healing. It goes ahead and preps it. It's ready to go. And now you are back in compliance again.
Interesting.
So it's interesting.
Now, are they saying that they'll eventually do that with actual system settings as well? Because that's when it gets scary. If you're updating system settings in production without a human looking over it, I mean, you could cause some service interruptions.
Yeah, I mean, this is where you're starting to see things like cognitive risk engines that are in place. And so it depends on the degree of the notification that you want. There are configurations that are already starting to be developed for, depending on the configuration that needs to be changed. For an example, so if AI determines that there's some sort of business process or some sort of systemic risk that is being introduced into your environment, then there are certain cases where you can give the approval where it'll autonomously reroute workflows, and then it'll notify the stakeholders, and it'll document the decisions, for when auditors come in. And this is all done without any kind of manual intervention in any way, shape, or form. However, you can set those configurations to standard for, hey, stakeholder, this workflow, there's a risk that has been introduced here. Do you approve? And so this is the importance of making sure that if you're introducing AI into your environment, that the proper processes and procedures are being in place to notify the correct stakeholders, make sure that there is definitive and audible approvals. Otherwise, to your point, it's going to be a big mess.
I kind of feel like it's the thing where right now, when there's a big breach or an outage, it's always like, oh, that was the intern who did that. Now it's going to be, that was the AI who did that.
Well, and
can we fire the AI?
Well, the explainable, they call it XAI, the explainable audible AI. So they're starting to see these leaps to integrate the traceable, legally defensible and audit ready, different decisions that have to be made. So, hey, we made these changes. We rerouted this information, but we have to be able to track these things. There wasn't a definitive approval. There was, this is how we did it. This is how the auditor can go back and look at what the steps that AI took. So this is another big step, and it's going to affect, PCI, SOX, GDPR, and all that stuff. It's going to definitely have to be in place, in order for these certain compliance standards to be able to be met.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I certainly like the idea that today's AI is able to do the analysis and report back on non-compliant items. The part about the self-healing piece, that gets a little scary for me, but, we'll see where that goes. I guess that's the same conversation we could have about AI. I was listening to a podcast the other day on an AI that was developed by, one of the companies. And as a part of the testing of this new generation of the AI, they specifically told it, that they wanted it to, self-destruct at some point. And they saw the AI learn enough to where it tried to circumvent the self-destruction, which, got a little scary. And that gets back into the stuff we, saw depicted in movies about, robots taking over the world and all of that. But, anyway, I guess it's, AI taking over our networks. So, well, I had a topic that came up with a client the other day that I was talking with. And it's AI, but it's Kyle, I know you call it the other AI, and that's around asset inventory. And this client was telling me that one of the challenges they're having is they're going through it's a smaller company, and they don't have the benefit of a huge number of enterprise class controls and a large number of resources to control owners to execute controls. And so it's a small organization, and you've got just a few people who are responsible for both operating the IT environment and then demonstrating the compliance and the security of the IT environment in this organization. And they were asking me, they were like, is there a way we can keep tabs on what's happening? We're very concerned that, the demands of an audit are such that it's burdensome for us to capture all of this information, and then report out on it, the screenshots and things that are necessary. But that even then went into how do they even know all the things that are in scope in their environment? And I know smaller organizations struggle with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where, right now you hear people talking about, the AI of artificial intelligence and making policies and procedures and security evaluations all around this. And that's all totally valid. But at the same time, we're all running, 100 miles an hour on that side of it without ever looking in the rearview mirror and just figuring out, how many servers are actually on your network. And I know Andy can attest this. It's very difficult to have a client who absolutely knows everything in their environment, almost to the point of impossibility right now with the way, servers get spun up and down if they're using, containers and virtual machines and laptops that are, going all over the country. Having just an inventory, an asset inventory, and doing some of those basic things of like patching your systems, which are, we all know the most important security things you can do also tend to be the hardest.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And another part of that, again, it's so difficult to have these conversations without including some sort of AI. But you're starting to see things like edge computing aggregation. So you'll be sitting on an edge firewall somewhere, and you'll have an AI that'll sit up there and go, all right, hey, I'm seeing these types of devices kind of moving through the edge of our firewall here. And then it'll take, hey, this is what we believe our firewall actually, all our inventory actually is. But the AI is capturing these devices. And so there's being able to correlate that inventory to be able to say, okay, this is what we think is our inventory, but this is what's coming through the edge firewall. Does anybody recognize what these devices are? So these are types of things that are not necessarily expensive, but it's more of knowing how to be able to use the correlation and aggregation on these different data points throughout your environment to be able to say, this is actually our inventory. We didn't even know this existed. What are these things? And being able to run those down. So it's exciting to be able to, and I've said this many times. Somebody asked me, when I was doing a topic, it was kind of a Q&A session, and there was like a bunch of different subject matter experts on the call. And they said, pick one thing that you feel like is the most important in information security. And everybody was saying all these different things. And I'm with that client. Inventory is it. If you can't protect it, you don't even know you have.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I think that's the killer, is that so many times we see breaches, and it'll be a situation where it was the company's endeavored to secure its systems, but there was some systems that fell through the cracks. They didn't know about it. They didn't have them in their asset inventory. And, you think about all the ways that can happen. Obviously, shadow IT through a business unit that doesn't follow the right processes, or an acquisition. A company buys another organization and that smaller organization doesn't have a good inventory, or, maybe the company, as they're integrating things, don't get things moved over properly, or they don't set the firewall right. And all of a sudden there's a leak into the old network that hasn't been properly secured. All those things are really hard. And that gets back to what you said, Kyle, is the reason we talk about the things that are hardest to do is because they aren't getting done, and that's the way people keep getting breached. The stuff that companies are getting good at, we're doing a better job, I think, of closing those holes. And so we're not seeing those exploited as successfully. But it's the stuff that's really hard to do that the bad guys are still finding ways to exploit and cause harm.
Yeah.
Healthcare.
And thinking about that too, maybe, to Andy's point, AI might be the answer for AI in a sense. We're using artificial intelligence to help you with your asset inventory. And, there's that term, the security poverty line that, was coined, I think, well over a decade ago about, how much you can afford and how much you can do. And maybe AI is going to be the thing that helps lower that poverty line. So that way you can essentially, do what we all want to do, which is do more with less. And, I can't afford to hire, another 3 people to figure out what my inventory really is, but maybe I can leverage some AI to go out there and review everything and look at my firewall rules and marry that all together, something that would take a human a long time to do, but an AI could likely do that a lot faster, to say, here are all your actual IPs that you have. Here's all your actual systems, and, have AI fix my AI.
I love it. AI,
I have a former colleague,
AI for AI.
I have a former colleague that gave this example, and it was probably one of the best I've heard. As you guys know, working in the medical field, hospitals constantly are buying these small clinics all over the place. And one of the challenges is bringing them all under one umbrella. And so asset inventory is challenging. So what they were deploying is much what like I was talking about, is that once they had that central line to the main hospital to the clinic, they were able to put a device in between the clinic and the kind of centralized hub of the main hospital and say, okay, this is the devices that we're seeing passing through this device to this. And we used artificial intelligence to identify those things, create us a list. And now we know what's at that clinic because you guys know this as well as I do. When a hospital buys clinics, it's not just like, well, 1 here, 2 here. It's like, we just bought 20 clinics. We just bought, a whole bunch of these things, and we're still trying to get them acclimated. And this is one of the things that he saw, that really helped the hospital to be able to bring everything under one umbrella, know what they have, identify, and then be able to start solving these problems.
Andy, that's a really good point. And as a former IT leader at enterprise, I know that challenge that you just described very well, trying to integrate a new business unit, and then, kind of biting your nails on what do they have, and are we going to find it all, and is it vulnerable, and all of that. So I think it's great that we've got some capabilities now that have evolved such that we can get better and better at getting our hands on that. So well, gents, man, I tell you what, this has been a lot of fun, and I want to tell you thank you very much for joining me today. And it's great to be back in the chair as a part of this podcast. And let's do it again sometime soon. What do you say?
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you all very much for listening, and we will get another episode out very, very soon. In the meantime, if you need any assistance with your cybersecurity efforts, please let anyone at LBMC Cybersecurity know, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Cheers. Stay secure.